As a reminder to unmute, on the little pedestals, there's a red button, turns green, and then online you can unmute.
We will get better. So welcome everyone to the February 21st City Planning Commission meeting. Before we call the roll or get going, we will be reading a preamble. Are you going to read this one?
Read it, yes. Morning, everybody. Adam Davenport. I'm filling in for Marka Fields today. She's out sick. So the long preamble. All right. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law in section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings in a manner modeled after Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by a voice vote. Recusals from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that online participants use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We'll also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located at the bottom of the Webex screen. All meeting activity is being recorded via the Webex platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. Requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comment on a particular matter. Proper channels for comments are listed below. Communication with members of this body must be on proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by Wednesday 12 p.m. deadline are collected by city planning staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting. Proper channels for public comment: sending an email to cityplanning@clevelandohio.gov with a comment or letter, calling and or leaving a message at our general city planning number, and sending a letter to or dropping off comments at City Hall. All right.
Okay. Call the roll.
Oh, would you like me to read this too? All right. All right. Meeting rules and procedures. The chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask planning staff to summarize design review advisory committee recommendations, if applicable, and any public comments received. Public comments received through the proper channels by the deadline are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have any interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff if applicable. The commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
All right. Now let's call the roll.
Anthony,
Present.
Blucher,
Present.
Curry,
Present.
Gray Scott,
Present.
Sargent,
Present.
Blythe.
We have a quorum. First item is to approve the minutes from the February 7th meeting. And
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the minutes.
a second. Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Blucher,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sargent,
Yes.
Slide.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, the first three items are zoning matters, and so they are public hearing. And for those of you online or here, I'll just sort of read the procedures for zoning matters. So for these public hearings, first staff will make a presentation on the rezoning matter. Second, we will have the sponsor, this could be the council person, the owner, who is representing this zoning matter. And then we'll open it up for public comment. Since it's a public hearing, we'll first ask for those in favor of the zoning change, and then we'll ask for those who are opposed to the zoning change. At any time, though, either either, if anyone just has a question about the zoning matter, they're welcome to ask that question as well. We just ask that you state your name clearly. I'll call on everyone in order, and state your name and address, or simply your business or name and address. And we ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Once we finish the public portion, then I will close that and we will have commission members ask questions or deliberate. So with that, the first matter is a townhouse in a one-family district. This is the Westpark Townhomes, permanent parcel number 024-15-011. And Shannon, it looks like you are here to present this matter.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commission members. Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Administrator. This project's going to look very familiar. This was approved through you all a couple months ago as a multifamily project. After they submitted permits, they've wanted to change these to townhomes. They were already townhome in style, but they wanted to change them to fee simple townhomes. And so, as you know, with the new townhouse regulations, anything that's in a one-family or two-family district requires a conditional use from this commission. And so they've come back with the same design, and they're really not making, they made a few modifications, but not too many. So they will require some variances from the Board of Zoning Appeals, in which you all know with the new regulations, those are typically not supported. We tried to either do the administrative modifications if they can, or have them revisit their site. But because this project has been so far along, and because of how far it sits off of the main street, we think that the variances that they're requesting are supportive. Are to be supported, if you all agree. But they do need a conditional use. We have a split zoning here between multifamily along Warren, as well as single family in the rear. Public notice did go out on February 10th. There was a sign placed along Warren Road here. So again, I'm sorry, there's a, okay, sorry. So this is just a overview of the site here, again, based on the regulations. Anytime there's a townhouse proposal in a single family, two family, requires a conditional use from you all. The first thing to think about for the conditional use is the development visually compatible with nearby properties in scale, height, setbacks, orientation to existing streets, roof lines, character, materials, colors. So this is just giving you an overview of the elevations here, as well as the existing along Warren and Edgecliff, and just giving you an idea of what those homes already look like along the street. And then the other is the development visually compatible with nearby properties. Again, just some more context video photos for you along Warren. Again, this project sits back off a private road, so they're basically all muse units according to the townhouse code. And these are just the elevations and the renderings that the applicant has provided that was previously approved. The development site is arranged so to create visual interest, promote security, safety, promote safe, efficient, and comfortable pedestrian vehicle circulation, and conserve natural features. And one of the permanent features of this is that they provide a significant open space and amenity space for the residents. This pretty. And so, again, this is just looking for the conditional use for this project that you all have previously approved under the multifamily classification. Now they're just, this is the parcel map showing how these will be split out. The variances that they need is because they are front-loaded garages, they do need that active space, and the active space that they're providing is just a foyer. But again, because this is sitting so far off of the main road, I think that's amenable, and then they'll need one setback between the four-unit building in the center there and the building to the left of the 3 units there next to the parking lot. And that concludes my presentation. I know this went through design review, and I believe the project representative is here.
Okay. The project representative here or online?
Online.
Who is that? Is it?
Mr. Young, I believe.
Mr. Young, would you like to say a few words?
Hi, this is Brandon from Young Design Studio. Yeah, just to, I think Shannon kind of nailed everything. We're available for questions. I know the owner is here as well. They changed to a fee simple unit, as Shannon stated. Previously, they were rentals, and I just think because of market conditions over the past year or so, we changed to for sale townhomes. So that's the change here.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so we'll open up the public portion. Is there anybody here who's would like to speak in favor of this conditional use? Do you see anybody online? No.
I don't see.
Don't see any hands. Is there anybody who has a question or is opposed to this conditional use? All right, we'll close the public portion, and commission members, any questions or comments or?
So I'll just say that I'm supportive of this and ask that my colleagues be as well. This is, I've come to understand there are different building code expectations between a multifamily and a townhome. I think we need to come up with a stronger policy on our side, though. The way this was presented to us initially was that these were being built as rentals with the intention of them being able to be sold individually at some point in the future. They were separately metered. Quite frankly, you know, if this had gone forward as planned and then turned over into townhomes, that would have been beyond our purview because we don't have say over how ownership is structured. But if things are being built looking like a townhome, whether it is for sale or for rent, I think that we should try to hold ourselves to the townhome code if possible, so that we don't end up in this situation, which is basically having to reapprove what was already approved.
Agree. I do have a question. Is there an HOA?
I'm going to defer to the property owner. I do believe that they submitted a permit for a common area parcel with the ease. So I will return that to Brandon.
Because if it was rental, it wouldn't matter because the owner would be responsible for roofs,
Yep.
et cetera. But now I think we need to hear from you, Brandon, or the owner, that there will be you are establishing a kind of maintenance for both the buildings and the site.
Yeah, they would need a maintenance agreement.
Can someone?
Hey
speak to
everyone,
that?
this is Anthony with Maverick Building Co. Yes, there will be an HOA for
Okay.
the green space and then all the general areas.
And for the kind of roofs and building maintenance too.
No, so all of the HOA will be on the landscaping and snow removal. So the way that we had designed these, we had specific roof lines and siding to really differentiate each unit, which is why we stuck with the fee simple. So nothing will be conflicting with a quote unquote condo. It'll be a townhome with all of the exterior elements of the house on the property owner, and then the general space with the street, and then the landscaping will be on the HOA that we'll set up.
So if somebody needs to fix a roof, they can do it independently without touching anyone else's property, things like that.
Exactly.
Any other questions or comments?
I will move approval of.
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Kirk,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slade.
Yes.
Motion carries. The second conditional use is a pedestrian retail overlay at 15798 Lorain Avenue. This is the conditional use includes a driveway access over a public sidewalk, an interior side yard of more than 4 feet. And I think Xavier, you're going to present this one.
Thank you.
All right.
Good morning. My name is Xavier Bay, zoning planner with City Planning. So let's go back here. Today I'm presenting to you conditional use needs from for the applicant at 15798 Lorain Avenue. And so this property is located in a local retail district in the pedestrian retail overlay. And this is just west of Camps Corner, Rocky River Drive, just east of Westpark Shopping Center. And so the applicant's proposing change of use to a smoke shop, retail shop. And so that triggers the need for them to come forward before you. So here you see some context of Lorain Avenue to the west and east of the site. You can see some of the your storefronts along Lorain Avenue. And so one of the conditional uses that they need approval for is the driveway going across the public sidewalk. And so you're looking at the conditions here. If the size, shape, or layout of the property does not allow placement of parking or driveway in a more suitable location, Lorain Avenue is the only access onto this parcel. And also you're looking for if there's a demonstration by the applicant to have the placement of parking, driveway. You're basically looking at it would jeopardize the use of the property should they not be able to have driveway across the sidewalk. And so that's one of the conditional uses. The next conditional use we're looking at is the interior side yard being greater than 4 feet. As you can see here, it's a straightforward shot of the property in question. You can see the area just east to the building is where the driveway and parking is located, and so that area there is greater than 4 feet, which triggers the need for a conditional use. Your condition here is if the subject building is a existing mixed-use building with first floor. Oh yeah, I'm sorry, I've got my words jumbled up here. So basically, I'm just telling you here that there's residential uses above the retail uses on the first floor. And so the side yard, the interior side yard being greater than 4 feet allows air and light for those residential uses. The applicant did agree to remove the first 4 or 5 parking spaces within the PRO, so they don't need a conditional use for that. And the applicant's actually willing to provide some sort of landscaping in the first 2 parking spaces needed per code. And so that's just it. It's short and sweet here. They just need a driveway, additional use going across the public sidewalk, and the interior side yard being greater than 4 feet. The applicant has a representative online. I believe it's Jihad is online if you have any questions for the applicant.
Okay, thank you. Is the project sponsor online? Would they like to say anything?
I'm actually, can you guys hear me?
Oh, there you go.
Yep.
Sorry.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you. Just state your name.
Sorry, my name is Danny Andrich. I'm actually the building owner.
Okay.
So I recently bought the building about a year ago and had no idea that there were all these problems with the parking. So as the owner of the building, I temporarily put up some concrete signs, no parking, and I taped off those spots for parking. But I did order some concrete planters. So we're gonna put some flowers and some like trees just to kind of block those spots. That should be done maybe within the next week or 2.
Okay.
Excuse me, Madam Chair. I did just want to add, we would like the applicant to, update their site plans displaying proposed landscaping.
Yeah. Well, what you said, concrete planters, like, what?
I want to do something more temporary because I don't want people to be hitting like, cars running things over. So I was looking at some, one of my personal landscapers. I have some other properties, and he suggested there's these like beautiful, like kind of decorative, concrete kind of block that you can put some soil and plants and kind of block it off nicely. So it's not like an eyesore.
Okay. Maybe you could work with staff on that. I mean, so anyway, we'll have some conversation in a second, but thank you very much. Before we discuss this, is there anyone online or here who would like to speak in favor of this zoning change or has any questions from the public? Okay, is there anybody who's opposed to this conditional use? Okay, so we'll close the public portion. Any questions or comments? I think this makes sense. It's existing, but I do think they ought to come back to staff just to even via email, just to show you what the treatment is going to be for the, up against the sidewalks, because it's such a kind of charming, super charming building that you bought, Danny, and a kind of great
you.
part of the district. So I think the idea of sort of how you really do that can really enhance this great site. And so we thank you for your investment, but I do think the devil's in the details on how that might look. So anybody else?
Make a motion. I'd like to make a motion for conditional use of the project at 15798 Lorain Avenue.
Second.
With the recommendation that they return to the staff for the landscaping.
Second.
Motion and a second. Before I call the roll, what that means, Danny, if we approve this, is just basically, you don't have to come back here or anything, and it's, the director can sign off on this just when you show them that kind of treatment. So you don't have to come,
Great.
you don't have to come back to the commission. All right, call the roll.
Perfect.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, the last zoning matter is an unnumbered ordinance. This is changing the use, height, and area districts of parcel of land south of West 26th Street between Chatham and Monroe Avenue. Shannon.
Good morning, Madam Chair. This came before you a few weeks ago. There's been one modification in terms of the setback, and I'll talk about that here. Mr. Whalen and Brandon are here from Geis.
Say real quick before you keep going. I see that this is also the next design review matter. So can we hear it all at once?
Yeah, there's also a street vacation matter here. I don't know if this can be bumped up for them because I know that.
Do it all.
Okay.
That's okay. So first, we're gonna do this all. We'll be orderly, but can I swear you in to, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? And Rick will call you up. If you can come up, actually, if you want to, we'll have everybody. You're gonna have to share the mic, but say aye, do. Okay, so I think the way we should do this, just so it's all related, is you'll talk about the zoning matter. We should talk about the design review, just to see it, right? Even though we've seen this, I recall. And then we'll do the street vacation.
Sounds
Okay,
good.
Okay.
Thank you. So the proposal here is changing the use area and height districts of the parcels of lands south of West 26 between Chatham and Monroe. And this is to promote the walkability and support a diversity of housing typologies, which is in alignment with the Connecting 2020 Cleveland Plan, as well as to provide diversity of housing. So this is the council's support. We added the email from Councilman McCormick first for when we originally had proposed the 5 feet, which is now 3 feet, and the second support letter here from Councilman McCormick supporting that minor change. So the zoning currently here is a mix of semi-industry, C3, and 2-family B1. And so the proposal here is to rechange all of these parcels and vacate Hancock Avenue to multifamily residential G2. This is immediately southwest of the Carriage Co project that recently came through for the renovation and redevelopment along West 25th. And so this was the original proposal with the 5-foot map setback. But what happened, the applicant, at the last meeting, you all asked them to go through design review and go back and talk to the community and provide elevations and things of that nature. They also went to PetBot, and I'll let the applicant kind of speak more on what happened at PetBot, but essentially Fire asked them to move the building closer to West 26th Street to provide more fire access along the rear. And so we are proposing today to change that to a 3-foot setback, and so they can do that. And those are the PetBot comments. So that is the proposal here of the map change is for the revised 3-foot setback based on those comments from PetBot in terms of access along the rear and some separation between them and the homes on the other street.
Okay.
Adjacent. Again, map setbacks are a required front yard space in which no structure may be located. It's indicated in the building zone maps of the city, can only be changed with legislation, and they take precedence over all other residential setbacks. And so this is just providing some context again along West 26 and across from the carriage project. And then this is some context photos for you all, West 26 in Chatham, and then looking at West 26 in Hancock, which Mr. Sosdowski will talk about in terms of that vacation. Also, as it relates to the comments from the community not wanting that to be a pedestrian thoroughfare for public safety reasons. And so the West 26 apartments here, I believe this is still part of the rezoning, but I can turn it over to Mr. Whalen if he wants to talk about that.
So just to note that as you talk about, these are the design review on the next page, page 6. This is for schematic approval. So we will look at both those. Before you jump in, were there any comments about the from design review? Did it go to local? It did. Yeah. Can you address those then for us, or any?
Let me scan forward because this is still part of the map change presentation, just giving you guys context photos, which include some of their images.
Okay.
While
Just
Shannon's
keep
going
going.
through that, we did gain approval from schematic from Near West, and there were no conditions of that.
Okay. All right.
Additionally, just to give some context, the original map change was proposed at 5 feet. It got changed to 3 feet just to allow us wiggle room. The building setback is actually, as proposed, 6 feet. The reason for that change was just to allow for the coordination between Lieutenant O and the fire department for access and or potential screening to the rear for residences on the backside. So they just wanted to kind of give us a little bit of leeway in case we did need to move the building forward and position the building forward. But as presented and as submitted, it will be a 6-foot setback.
I'm hand it over to him. Presentation's next. Oops. Yep.
I kind of skipped the first page here, but so the project is, as stated, it's a multifamily apartment building in Ohio City neighborhood on West 26th Street between Chatham and Monroe, immediately west of the former Voss complex. This was previously a portion of that complex where they used for surface parking. So 95% of this site is still a gravel surface parking lot that is basically vacant. There is one single family home. It has been purchased. It is part of this. And we've been very sensitively handling the conversations with the gentleman who lives there, who will be moving out as a result of the project. I'm going to go zoom in here. Well, these are context images. We showed these just in the last presentation, but it kind of represents to you that this was formerly an industrial complex, a manufacturing facility for aerospace components. Voss, as I'm sure everyone's aware, left in 2019, so it's been essentially vacant. I would call it blighted since then. And so we're happy to see the redevelopment going across the street, and we're working in coordination in tandem with MRN, who's developing that site, to really take a look at the district as a whole and plan our project in complement to theirs. Do you want to speak to this one?
Sure. So one of the comments earlier on with design review was just understanding circulation and movement on the site. The red ring is emergency access for fire vehicle. One of the things that will be changed moving forward as we work through with Lieutenant O post PetBot was changing the access to the right of this plan of the building. We will be having a straight shot through to Monroe. So the curb cut will be on Monroe. There will be no curb cut on 26 for that wraparound. And again, that last parcel, if you will, where the arrow stops is the end of our property, but MRN will be keeping that parcel with a access easement, cross access easement to allow us to use for fire safety and also vehicular access. So our intention really is that you would, utilize Monroe and Chatham to eliminate or alleviate some of the congestion of relief on vacating that parking lot. Another item that came up through discussions, as we mentioned, we've been working very closely with the neighbors and residents. We've held multiple meetings, attended block club meetings. We've held a private meeting at the Mitchell's Ice Cream Shop, just with the select neighbors directly abutting the property, just to hear their thoughts and feelings and concerns. Pretty much most of those items had to do with screening, sensible screening, landscaping, what trees are staying, what trees are going, because there's a lot of trees that are kind of right on a property line. We've committed to meeting them on site and doing a walkthrough to kind of pinpoint what trees will and will not be apart. And we also spoke to them that the intention is we're screening the backyard. If some of the items need to be moved to the other side of the fence to kind of give them a little bit of a beautification on their side, we're open to that discussion as well and working closely with them. The other aspect, the neighborhood and residents directly abutting really don't want to turn this into a pedestrian thoroughfare and shortcut. The elementary school already kind of diverts pedestrians to the flanking streets of Monroe and Chatham. So the aspect of the street vacation request really is Hancock really almost just acts as a private drive to the entryways to these rear residences that are tucked off of Hancock. It really isn't intended or a part of kind of a pedestrian cut through. We have aligned our entrance and main entry to the building with what will be, I guess, a pedestrian cut through or retail opening in the carriage company redevelopment. So our entrance does align as a node at the end of that and an entry point to create interest at that point. If you want to go next slide. The ground floor plans, we have tuck under private garages on the rear. We have parking exposed on the surface on the other side of the drive lane. And then large amount of walk-up units with large porches to create kind of that really nice streetscape. The intention is we understand that we're kind of nestled within one block of a main, artery. So we wanted to be a little bit more appropriate to the neighborhood and blend a little bit more than you would if it was on a main street. With the middle section being kind of our public amenities, fitness center, entrance and lobby.
I'll just jump in here. As it pertains to Hancock Avenue and vacating the eastern portion, just I know we're jumping ahead, but we work directly with all 4 residents that abut Hancock Avenue on what plans south on the bottom of the page here. All issued letters of support and actually all kind of requested that it doesn't, kind of carry through to our rear parking lot. There's young kids in some of those houses, and I think traffic whipping through there as a cut through would present a dangerous condition. Those neighbors have just reconstructed garages, and there's a new build back there, and so it's a pretty sensitive area for that. And as a result, the rear of our property will be a 6-foot privacy fence with landscaping. We'll probably add some more trees than what are shown here just to over time give them a little bit more privacy from the 4-story building that we're putting in place. But we believe that we've addressed all of their concerns with the current plan. And that was the reason that initially we felt that Hancock Avenue would be beneficial to go away as we studied the project.
The second through third floor, again, just more units. We have 109 units in the building, as Dan mentioned, a 4-story structure. And we on the roof, 4th floor, we do have a public to the roof or to the building, a roof terrace. That center section, basically there's indoor common space and then the roof terrace for a setback to break the massing. And then at the flanking sides, the 2 3-bedroom units that are at the ends will have their own private terrace that'll overlook the neighborhood as well, which creates a really nice form when you get to the renderings and massings. Our landscape plan, again, very intentional to create kind of a really walkable street. The intention really to integrate those ground floor units to the streetscape, create private patios that have that kind of stoop and feel that allow for furniture and residing out there, along with small, almost feel as if they have a small private space with the way that they get nestled behind the landscaping. And then to the rear, the intention is to create as much of a green buffer to the fence as well. And again, some of the discussion has been about potentially putting some of that on our side of the fence versus their side of the fence, and we're open to those kind of blending that. Additionally, I should note that there are some encroachments with some neighbor parcels to the rear. We're working closely to maintain the left corner, there's a driveway with 3 kind of old vintage trees there. We'll maintain and keep, even though their driveway does protrude onto our parking, to our parcel by about 3.5 feet. So that'll be maintained to allow them to have access and work around that condition.
The one point of clarity is that the parking shown on the plan right is actually not going to be part of our project or our parcel. That is going to be continue to be owned by MRN, and it'll be part of their additional parking for their carriage company project. But we do have a cross-access easement agreement that we're working on to allow for, as Brandon said earlier, fire access free and clear to both sides of the building at the rear. So while we're showing it as parking, it's probably going to stay in its current condition for some time until they improve it. So it's not part of our development.
It's just the diagrammatic context section, just to give you a perspective of the carriage company building, former Voss building, stepping down to our 4-story proposed building, and then stepping down further to the various existing homes and townhomes. We feel that we are kind of stepping back into the neighborhood at a sensitive and contextual level with appropriate separation. Materiality, one of the aspects of this, we really wanted to get into having this building really blend with in character with the neighborhood. So the brick is considered to be a tumbled brick, something that has a little bit more of a vintage historic kind of feel, but with a modern flair. Again, trying to make it feel like it's been built in this neighborhood for quite some time. And then again, residential materials intentionally because we really want this to feel as if it's a building a part of the neighborhood. So the fiber cement panels in the khaki and hunter green, and then a large emphasis on the texture of the trim. So various depths and thicknesses to really create a nice feel and contextual to the facade. Then just some renderings, if you want to just kind of flip through, but just to give you guys a feel of what the building will look like and feel like. Again, the step backs and setbacks for the terraces, both at the midpoint on the front of the building and at the ends. Here's a great shot of those porches and stoops and how they'll integrate with the landscaping up front, creating a really nice streetscape. The walkability of the street. And then lastly, we hid the fence just so you can kind of see a little bit more of the building, but there will be a 6-foot privacy fence that basically you can see that, and this is the drive that's between our property and the townhouse property we'll maintain. Again, it's about 3 feet or so past their property line onto ours that we'll maintain with those 3 trees that will also be maintained, and then full screening to the parking lot.
Yeah, one element it's not rendered in here is the privacy fence will return towards the building and kind of block the view of the parked cars there on the western edge of the site. So that's in the plan. It's not necessarily in this rendering. And so that way, hopefully the parking lot will be mostly not visible.
Thank you. Maybe Rick will hold a little on the vacation. I'm going to take some public comment first. So is there anybody online or here who has who wants to speak in favor of the zoning change or has a question? Is there anybody who's opposed to this zoning change? Okay. So we're going to close the public portion. And the way we'll proceed is we can ask questions about anything or comments. And then eventually we'll need 3 motions, but we'll still hear the vacation.
I will just say this was one, but there was a lot of public input last time around. So it does seem that there's been a lot of engagement, responsiveness. I mean, architecture, I understand the idea of breaking up the building and having the pedestrian path, but I think I can appreciate responding to the residents' preferences. And then I think it is fair about the school sort of blocking that path, so thank you for doing all of that.
Couple comments and questions, if I may, Madam Chair. I think overall, Brittany Pavone from our staff is here to comment on any design review questions as well. But I think overall, this is advancing nicely, especially given that the MRN project is a landmark review project as well, the Voss building space. I did have a question about the corner MRN parcel to the applicant. You mentioned at the start that the curb cut might be off of Monroe, but you do have an access easement agreement with MRN themselves.
Yeah, there will be by the time we pull permit. We wanted to lock in the exact location of where that cross through will be so
Yeah.
that it could be a legal description that's done. But in principle, yes, this project will require that. And
Okay, and that, I think highlighting to staff like that as a separate parcel should be noted to landmarks too, as a design review item that, you know, gets looked at through the landscaping screening requirements as a standalone parking lot and should kind of complement your project as well, I would suspect.
I'd like to say, I really like the design a lot. I think you also came with materials, and so to my fellow commission members, I wonder if we ought to give them the ability to just go back to local with the final, as opposed to coming here, just it's a lengthy process. Our goal is to make it easier for you who are doing this great project. And also I agree with the councilman. You know, since the last time you were here, obviously you've done a lot of work because there's no one here. And that's a good thing actually, because last time there wasn't. So I commend that. But I actually really like the design. I think that it's also different than how we normally see these long projects. It is broken up. I know this is gonna sound strange, but it has a kind of Chicago architecture feel to me. If you know how some of these buildings are in Chicago, I don't know why I have that feeling, but if my commission members, when we get there, I wonder if this could go back to local versus coming here. And then staff could sign off on it. But before we do that, can I just talk quickly about the vacation and then we're gonna do 3 motions.
They're gonna put your presentation. You have that. It just has a little.
And the vacation, by the way, is on page 17. And it simply states that this is a unnumbered ordinance for the vacation of Hancock Street.
You can go to the next slide. One more. There you go. If this is the intent to vacate a portion of Hancock Avenue between West 26th and the rear of the abutting property owners. It's for us to create a safer environment, to obviously facilitate the development and for cohesive development at the rear of these houses. Next one, please. As you can see, it's a partial vacation and the developer is under contract with all the property owners to the north and south of the proposed vacation. Next slide, please. Again, another picture, you've seen a few of these before, gives you some context of the area of Hancock and the parking lots that they'll be building the new facility upon. Next one, please. We've seen this next one, so we'll go right through and go to questions.
I guess just a general question, not specific to the vacation. Through the Madam Chair to the applicant, I just had a quick question, and I know this is schematic, about the lighting in the parking lot, that abuts the residential properties. I know you mentioned meeting with those residents, but just curious to know what plans that you have for lighting.
Yeah, so the rear property actually, you know, obviously want to be lit responsibly. You know, it's a beautiful symphony that will need to happen between ensuring we have, you know, the appropriate amount of lighting level. But we have committed to the neighbors that we won't be blasting parking lot light into their residences. The strategy of that would be to put low poles so that they're not, you know, intruding into their vision of their upper floors, but with a cutoff basically so that we would have no light bleed, you know, past our property line. So, you know, typically if there wasn't a residential behind, we'd probably put a bunch of wall packs on the back. But knowing that this building, you know, we don't want to be blasting light in that direction, we'll be actually putting the light back towards the building.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. So first, I think we'll go to the zoning matter. And we'll need a motion for, this is on page 5.
Yes, Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that, for approval for the changing use of the parcel on West 26th Street for development.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slife,
Motion carries. The second item's on page 6, which is the design review motion. I think if we're okay, this would be a motion to approve that the final only need to go back to local design review unless you can't come to agreement.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval for West 26th Street Apartments. That they will, instead of coming back to us, go to design review for final approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slife.
Thank you. And the vacation, page 17.
And Madam Chair, I'd like to make motion for the vacation of the portion of Hancock Avenue for development.
Motion and a second.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slife.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys. Good luck.
Thank you very much. Yep.
Hopefully you'll get in the ground soon. Looks like it. Gone for spring. Okay, the next item is near West Design Review 2025001 La Bamba. This is 3241 West 65th Street. This is for final approval. We have some folks coming up. I'll swear you all in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
You can grab that other mic. You just have to press the button to turn it on. Oh. Go ahead. I think they have your slides.
Do I just click right?
Yeah, click
I-
right and then there's a small delay too.
Okay. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Tommy Chestnut. I'm with the architecture firm Onyx Creative. We also have our civil engineer here. I'll let him introduce himself.
Morning, I'm Ryan Shahan. I'm with the Kleinger's Group. As Tommy mentioned, we're the civil engineer on the project.
We also have the owners of La Bamba with us here. They're in the back of the room there. Okay, so what we're proposing here is a multi-use building. It is a manufacturing facility or production facility for tortillas. That's kind of the bulk of the use of the building. That makes up probably 60% of the square footage. La Bamba Group currently has a property in the area that they are outgrowing. They're looking to expand their capacity. The building will also handle distribution of the product. And then the two new uses that La Bamba is looking to incorporate into their business is a local market as well as a fast casual style restaurant. So the building incorporates all of those uses as well as offices for the La Bamba Group that will be on the second floor of the building. To walk you through the site plan here, we have a parking field located to the south of the site. And then there's also the drive-through on the southeast end of the site, the entrance to the drive-through, going up and then arcing toward the east end of the building to exit out onto West 63rd. The loading area of the building is on the northeast corner of the building. Since we were at the local design review, we have since adjusted the footprint of that loading dock area. We got further along with our civil design and realized that the building needed to be notched in to accommodate the truck turning movements. So that's why the building is notched if you'd seen previous versions up in that northeast corner. And because of losing that square footage, we've had to extend the west side of the building 5 feet to the west. So it is 5 feet closer to West 65th. This is a diagram that shows the truck turn movements. So all truck traffic will be on West 63rd and will be coming from the south, both going in and out of the site. Here's a first floor plan of the building. So starting from the bottom of the page, on the right-hand side, that's the fast casual restaurant. It'll have seating within the restaurant, and the kitchen is all the way to the right. There's also going to be a nice covered patio that'll have garage doors that can open during the summer months. In the center of the building there will be the main entrance for the public, and that's a nice double height space where guests can either go to the right to the restaurant or left to the market or up the stairs for some community services that the La Bamba group is planning on offering. And then the offices can also be accessed through that central lobby. And then north of that heavy line that divides the building is the production facility. So that's where they're making the product. And then the distribution occurs on the top right-hand side of the page up there. Here's a rendering of the public entrance of the building. We drew inspiration from a historic market that we located in Mexico City. The La Bamba group wanted a really authentic feel. So the color palette is very neutral, and then the pops of color are going to come from public art and murals. So where we don't have glass on the facade, we've left space for murals. This is just a view entering the building from the parking lot. And that patio that I had discussed is to the right of the entrance, tucked under the second floor of the building. And this is a view of that patio. This is a view from West 65th looking south. One of the comments that came out of the design review was that we were asked to provide a little bit more detailing on this facade. This is the production side of the building, so we took some of that design language that we used on the public facing entrance and wrapped it around to West 65th. So we've added these arches and these 3 murals, as well as the sign area on the corner. Go back one. So this is a view heading north on West 65th. So here you see the public side of the building as well as the production facility in the rear. And then this next view is from West 63rd. This is looking toward the drive-through lane. That's the stacking lane right there for the restaurant. And then that back half is the production facility. And you can kind of see a truck in the back there where distribution occurs. And here are the elevations. So a lot of glass on the public side. And then we are incorporating windows where we can in the manufacturing side for daylighting. We had been asked to consider windows on the north elevation, but due to the program that's along that wall, there's a lot of full height freezers and coolers. So there wouldn't be any benefit to adding high windows in that area. Again, the neutral palette, the building's made of precast concrete panels. So they will be painted these warm stone colors, as well as the more decorative public facing side of the building will be using EIFS applied to the concrete panels to create the decorative trim. And for signage, we're going to be doing a canopy mounted sign above the front entrance. And on the, okay, so this is this drawing came from the sign company. It's on an older elevation that doesn't show those arches I was talking about, but the sign area is the same on the right-hand side there. And La Bamba is still working with their sign vendor. I think the last I heard, they're looking to possibly have 3 smaller signs in the same area because they have 3 separate companies. There's the La Bamba group, the market is Fiesta Amigos, and then there's the tortilla production that has its own name. So the signage location will be the same, but it may be broken into 3 smaller signs. Photometric plan showing that we are illuminating the parking lot with pole lights in the landscape islands, as well as there will be lighting under the canopy on the public facing side of the building and wall packs on the perimeter of the building on the production facility. And do you mind speaking to this drawing? I believe it's just a drainage plan of the site.
Sure. Yeah, so going through this process with water pollution control and regional sewer district, looking at the site and how it currently drains. A portion of the site currently drains to 65th, while a larger portion drains out to 63rd. Through coordination with water pollution control, we're going to detain the stormwater with underground storage, and that will be outletted to a combined sewer system in West 65th. That is the preference of water pollution control and regional sewer district. With having kind of the split watersheds on site, I had a call with regional sewer district, and just to the north of the site, both of these storm lines in 63rd and 65th actually combine into what they call a regulator. Since those are both going to one regulator, we're able to detain the site as if it was going one direction, since it's all going to kind of one outlet, if you will.
We are including bike parking as required. The owners are quite certain that their customers will not be utilizing automobiles as much to get to and from. They expect a lot of pedestrian traffic, so walking and biking. We are including bike racks on both sides of the site, off of 65th and off of 63rd. And then the site furniture, there's going to be a few benches in front of the building entrance.
Quick question. Yep. So I was confused by the signage. There was an original rendering you said where it said La Mercado,
Yeah,
and then you showed us one that said Fiesta Amigos.
yeah. So
Are those?
the La Mercado, that was a very conceptual idea before we understood the branding of the signage. But the yeah, the
So you're basically that first shot you showed us. Can you go back to it? This one? Well, does that mean that like that you will have that more vertical La Fiesta? If that's okay.
so it'll look like this. Instead of saying Mercado, it'll say Fiesta Amigos, which is the name of the market and the house brand of the food that they're selling.
Well, I will tell you, I love everything about this project, except for that. Really, I love everything about this project, like the idea of, creating a model where you have production and this kind of front facing the market and the retail and the restaurant, a drive through even, like, really thinking about what's the future of a company like this being able to thrive in this city and doing it at West 60. It's like everything about it I love. I did really have preference for the first rendering you showed. I think it was really, it just actually integrated better into the building. It's not that I'm against colorful signage or things like this, but it really does read like you took a logo and slapped it on the front of a very thoughtful canopy. So either you rethink the kind of the idea of the canopy. It also held the datum line of how you had the cornice, it seemed thoughtful. And then the finished product seems like it slapped something on. So I wonder if there's a, what do I call it? Like a compromise or medium way to think about it, because everything about this, even the kind of the doors, the outdoor seating, it feels really special. So it's just my opinion. I'll stop there, but I wonder, I know you're here for final and I think we should help you move forward, but not have to, but maybe to kind of work with staff on that. Were there any local comments, designery comments?
Hi, Commission. My name is Brittany Pavon, near West Side City Planner. Also, like everyone this one.
Yeah.
Pardon me, I'm a little under the weather. There weren't any local comments, but as we were going through all of these processes, there were like some shifts that happened in the design. Also, I want to mention that the sign will be coming back. This is a placeholder. It isn't what it's going to be. That's what was mentioned in local design review for final, which we were also happy to hear. But other than that, we're all very happy that this project is coming and it's moving along quickly, and we're as fast as it can in a way that's thoughtful and that's going to be a pioneer for this area that has currently nothing going for it right now. So it's just going to be a great revitalization for West 65th. But other than that, the committee is very happy about this going forward, and community is also happy about it.
I mean, it's a significant investment. I'm so glad this is happening in the city and here. Would you be willing to kind of work with staff and local to kind of take another look at that sign if we approved final and said you don't have to come back here, but you go work with staff on that? I mean,
Well, Bamba's been incredibly, they're excited to move forward, so I'm sure we'll be able to. I'm thinking maybe we can do something hybrid where we keep this kind of lettering and then maybe the logo is to the right of it. So it's kind of doing both things possibly.
So thank you. We want to support you. This project is amazing. So, and I don't want to make you guys come back here because you're trying to move through. So if you're open to kind of working with the staff on just the signage piece, and if you work it out, you don't have to come back here. I think we're fine with that because I don't want to slow you down because this is awesome. So thank you.
Tara has had her hand up. I'm not sure related
Oh, Tara, are you online? Do you have any comments?
Yes, I am. Thank you. I love this project as well. I just wanted to say for the public art portion, when you all have final renderings, because of the ordinance, that part will have to come back. I'm excited that public art is being incorporated into it, especially colorful murals, because I really think that plays well with Latin culture. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Tara, would you be open to that? Just coming back to you and staff too. If we made a motion that said both signage and the murals in terms of what they are would just come back to you and to staff, I think that's fine too, if you're okay with that.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Madam Chair, to the applicant, just a point of clarity. Can we go back to the parking lot layout? I just wanted to couple comments. The curb cut for the I guess the truck area seems rather large. Is that necessary for the swinging out? There's no way to shorten that up?
Yeah, so they're looking to accommodate, it has to do with the length of the trucks. So because you probably speak better to this, but because of the length of the truck, you need a really wide area for the swing.
So I can kind of elaborate on that. There's really two size trucks that's planning to be utilized at WB 67, which is your distinct kind of the standard semi trailer you see on the road, and then WB 50. So the need for the WB 67, there's actually the southern two. So there's 4 docks. The southern 2 are accommodating for the WB 60, and that has to do with trucks coming from the south having to make that swing since 63rd is so narrow. They kind of have to use a lot of that apron to kind of make that turn down in. So the northern 2 docks are reserved for the smaller WB 50s. And then with all traffic then exiting also to the south, if you think of a truck sitting there at that 4th dock, one of the larger WB 67s, almost as it starts to pull out, it has to start making that swing to the south. So that's kind of what's necessitating such a wide footprint there.
Okay, and the parking that's almost like southeast, that's facing the street, is that backing into the street, or is there a buffer there, or it's just on the street parking?
Yeah, that's on-street parking. And we understand we need to get a permit for
that. Okay. I've never seen that before, so I was just like, okay, that's interesting.
There's
Okay.
actually a lot of the industrial facilities on the site are already formally. They put gravel down and they're just parking in the tree lawn. So we're actually going to
formalizing it and making it part of the landscape.
We're relocating power poles to make it safer.
Okay, great. I agree with Madam Chair's comment about projects like this. I think it's one of the benefits of sitting on Planning Commission that we get to see beautiful things like this, people investing in the city. So in full support of the project.
Thank you.
Couple other comments if I can, Madam Chair. It wasn't mentioned at the beginning, but this is one of our properties in the industrial commercial land bank. So the applicant group has actually been working with our economic development department on this site, and in tandem with Brittany and Planning Commission staff, which is a very cool collaboration on this floor and floor 3 or floor 2. And then another great point with activation in the neighborhood, Brittany and in concert with Councilman Santana is working on a Stockyard small area plan. Councilwoman Santana has, through the Transformative Arts Fund, really been focusing on Stoller Avenue, and Brittany is helping her and some community members expand on a small area plan. So hopefully we will see that kind of shortly, maybe in the springtime as well.
Thank you. Anyone want to make a complicated motion?
I will.
Okay.
Jump in.
Madam Chair, I'd like to approve the project, La Bamba project on 3241 West 65th Street with the condition and the recommendation that they return to staff for approval on signage and public art.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Blythe.
Yes.
Motion carries. Congratulations. Can't wait to come out once it's done. Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Super cool.
I'd like to just say thank you to the city. You guys have generally been incredible. They've done so much work with the city and so many people have been involved to push this forward, and it's really been a great process.
Oh, you should have led with that. We would have made. We're looking for some views. We have a low Yelp score.
I think I chose the one that is important. Everyone really works
Samples
together.
would have been even better. Samples for us. But anyway, congratulations. Thank you really for this incredible project. Such a good story. Okay, we have 6 demolitions. They're going to be packaged together, right? 2 and then 4. So the first 2, if you look at page 8 and page 9, and we're going to do those first. This is 4193 Lee Road and 4197 Lee Road. They're going to present them together, but we'll still need 2 motion, or we'll figure that out. Who is presenting these?
I think they're online.
NTWA, right?
Hello, this is Jihad Zayed. I'm the landowner of the property.
Okay.
You need me to
Is this for the
present?
gas station we already approved?
No.
No. Okay, they've got your plant, your materials are up.
Okay, let me see what he has here. Yes, we want to just knock down the 2 properties, the houses, because we own the adjacent property next door, the commercial property, the restaurant. And basically we took these on from the neighbors. They were just having a hard time and they couldn't sell them or whatever. They had some water bills and some tax bills, and they just need so much work that it's really not worth the rehab. One of them has like a building violation, big building violation, probably gonna go into what's that called? When
Receivership.
No, condemned. It was gonna get condemned or whatever. So we were gonna knock it down, put seed and straw for now, and then once we're free, because we got other developments going on, come back to see you guys with some type of development idea, because Lee Road over there, it's mostly commercial. It's those 2 houses, and then I got 2 houses next to us, but I think one of them is vacant, probably almost on the condemned list, and the other one, there's nobody living there. Got McDonald's and Taco Bell and shopping centers all throughout that corridor, so it's really mostly commercial. So we want to do something commercial there in the future. We're just not sure what yet. But for right now, they're just safety hazard of being there. They just need so much work. They're not worth even revitalizing. That's what I have.
Thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
The pictures. We got pictures. All right. If we're going to approve this, I think we should just do two motions. There's, the first one is on page 8 and then page 9.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for demolition at 4193 Lee Road.
Second.
A motion in 2 seconds. I'll call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sergeant. Oh, he's Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries.
I'll move approval of the demolition at 4197 Lee Road.
I second.
A motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
And Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, the next 4, Jillian, you're presenting, so welcome. So do all 4 quickly and then we'll
Okay.
figure out how to vote on these.
I think the first one is Francis, 6307 Francis.
Yes.
There was a deceased woman found in this building in January, and so we were working on it for demolition while that happened. So the neighborhood is eager to see this come down. It is privately owned. It transferred to the current owner through probate court after his father died. Somebody occupied the residence for a few years after he was deceased. I don't know who, but it's a little worse for wear on the exterior. All of the aluminum siding has been removed. That's why it looks like that. Interior is not like the worst thing we've ever seen, but because of what happened, the community is really eager to see this one go. So we haven't received a lot of complaints on this, 4 formal complaints. We've brought it up twice since 2023. There is a property tax balance of $7,000. So it's been abandoned.
Why don't we just do this one first?
Yeah. Madam Chair, I make a motion for the demolition on Francis Avenue.
Second.
Motion and a second.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry.
Yes.
McCray Scott. Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. And the next 3 are at 116th Street, correct?
East 116. The property at East 116th has more complaints on it than I've ever seen. If you could go get this one, it doesn't look that bad, but there was a fire there. We've had 19 complaints on this and boarded up 8 times. That's significant. It's like a block away from the high school.
Wow.
So I don't know if the kids are just having fun, but a lot of complaints on this one. Owner has been the same owner since 2019. The address is from Detroit, Michigan. They were summoned to housing court last year and they didn't appear. So, I mean, that's really all we can do. They were summoned to housing court for a different issue, not demolition, but.
Okay.
Madam Chair. Oh, go on.
I'll move approval of the demolition at 3759 East 116.
I second.
Motion and a second.
Anthony. Sorry, Anthony,
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
And Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. The next one's 13800 Harvard Avenue.
Yes, so this one is the rear property that is remaining. There was a larger masonry apartment building on the front of this property and now there's a single family in the back. This is a single family in the rear. We do have the owner in court for collections. We pursue collections against people who have assets. He's in court. Last thing I heard was like in October, November that he was going to file bankruptcy. So this one is the worst condition that we'll see in the photos. The owner does not have the means to repair it. It's also been, I would consider this abandoned. There's like some holes in the roof and damage, water damage throughout.
Madam Chair, I make a motion for demolition of 13800 Harvard Avenue, please.
Second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott.
Yes.
Sergeant.
Yes.
Motion carries. Last one is 1420 West 116.
So 1420 West 116 is also a single family structure. It might be a double. It is right next to Chelsea's Vintage Clothing.
The owner is elderly. She has owned this. She has had control of this property since the 80s. There was a moment in time that I thought she didn't, but she did. It was transferred to her son's LLC. I don't know that it was, I think it was occupied for a little bit during that time, but it is kind of filled with debris from her clothing, her vintage clothing store and costume store from next door. Her health is failing. She is in housing court. She is on community control. She's not complying with anything that the judge has told her.
Sure.
So we feel that unfortunately this is the best outcome for this property.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for demolition of 1420 West 116th Street.
Well, we have a motion. Do we have a second? Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant.
Yes.
He walked out, sorry. A motion carries, so not him. Thank you very much. Sorry I made you wait all that long for that. All right, a downtown design review. This is Voinovich Park Site Furnishings, the city of Cleveland presenting this. Emily and John,
Yes, hey,
welcome.
thank you. I'm Emily Petz. I'm the newest landscape designer in site development. So some of you I've met, hello again. So yes, I am happy to present Voinovich Park Site Furnishings today. We went through downtown design review with approval. And so I have some samples here as well today. Do I flip or? Okay.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
Okay. So Voinovich Park is just north of us at Lake Erie. Here's some existing site photos. There's the iconic Cleveland sign there, along with the harbor view. So you will see in our plan, in between these existing light poles, we are proposing some swing benches there. There's the existing bocce court there that is underused, so we are actually proposing to remove it and replace it with cornhole boards. There is a view of the podium stage that was existing that has now been removed. We are proposing to keep that a flush plain patio with a pavilion there, so we can use it for larger uses and larger shows there on the lawn. This middle view at the bottom is the west end view, which we are proposing some big loungers there. And then the end is end of East 9th Pier where the existing traffic circle is. And we are proposing a really cool viewing arch there. So here's the plan. One of the larger improvements along the southern end, we are proposing some new trees and landscaping for shade. We are also proposing a playground there. So you will see the bocce courts are removed with the cornhole boards there in place, 2 sets. So there will be 4 boards. The pavilion structure is to the south as well. We are also proposing some other trees around the site to fill in where kind of the existing honey locusts are that are kind of dying back or sad. We want to replace those. And then along the northern portion, we want to add a landscape strip to kind of separate the traffic parking area and the pedestrian area, just give that a little bit of room and separation for safety. And then we want to propose weeping willows in these areas to the north and the south. That's just kind of an iconic tree that we've seen around Cleveland, like at sites at like Edgewater and Canal Basin as well. You will see along the north the spot for the viewing arch at the end of the pier. This will be kind of a separate art piece, so we're not going for approval for that today, but just to show you the location of where that will be. And then I'll get into our site furnishings that we are proposing. Just so you can get a reference before we go through all of the imagery, we are proposing freestanding tables and chairs. We have talked to the manufacturers, and the chairs are about 20 pounds. So we're not really concerned about them blowing or moving around. We also found that they're actually right across the street at the Federal Plaza as freestanding, and they haven't had any issues there, which is, you know, right next to our site, which is great. So we are proposing tables and chairs, picnic tables, and then these heavy loungers from Street Life, which are on the northern and western edges. And they're kind of tucked into where those existing tree pits are on the west end. And then the biggest site furnishings that we're really excited about are the swing benches, and those are on the southern and northern ends. Double bays, a total of 5 of those. And then the playground features, which we will go through as well. So that's at the southern end. I'm just proposing a climber, just as kind of a statement piece, but also to show that kids are welcome here. Cleveland is obviously a good place to raise a family, and just to have that as a sign of everyone is welcome here. And then, along the north, I forgot to mention, we are proposing these viewing tables to kind of look out at the water. And they are ADA, but also they kind of have this extended piece on the side, which we think are great for fishing, for people to rest their fishing poles on. And you will see those as we go through. So here are our site furnishings. We are proposing the orange picnic tables. And this color palette is based off of the North Coast Harbor to give it some reasoning, but also to just kind of contrast the green lawn and the natural features there. And then also the kind of stark gray palette that is existing at Voinovich now. So orange picnic tables, the tables and chairs, I have selected a dark gray for the tables, and then the chairs will be our pop of color in this mango and sky blue color. The passive viewing table at the end of the pier can be the mango color for a pop. And then these Street Life furnishings, the heavy loungers and rough and ready seats and cubes, those are also at the northern edge, will be wood. These have a longevity of about 35 years. We selected the galvanized steel base for these because of the longevity as well. The manufacturer is promising about 50 years for the galvanized base. And then we're also recommending that these litter receptacles are dark gray, just to kind of blend in, but also give a fun pop of color on the top. And I selected these from Landscape Forms as well. And it kind of plays off the double triangle at Voinovich there today. For our swing benches, we are proposing a dark gray post with a orange glider and wood top overhead structure. So these will be kind of really contemporary pieces that are down there on the southern and northern portions. For the large pavilion, we are also recommending or proposing, I should say, dark gray post for that structure with a multicolor roof, metal roof rib. And that could just be the same color palette, the sky blue, orange, and mango. The underneath ceiling would be a warm wood finish. And then we have a rendering of the custom structure to give a feel of what that would look like. We would give a larger span on the northern side to the lawn to provide, room for the bands or events that are taking place under the structure. This is to give you a feel of the climber that I had selected. I also had a musical drum table by Sonic Architecture. It's an actual instrument, but can be used as a table and chairs, which is nestled in right by the playground. The cornhole boards, they'll just be kept very simple with maybe a Cleveland logo, Cleveland script. And then we also did propose exercise equipment on the northern portion of the plan because Voinovich is a destination of a runner's loop for residents downtown. So we thought that could be a good addition there. And it's just kind of tucked into a planter, so it'd be kind of inconspicuous. This is the plant palette. Oh, for Voinovich. So these existing planters, we have a lot of overgrowth or weeds or just grass. They've been hard to maintain. So we are proposing to remove all of the grass underneath, come in with some rich topsoil and amend with these new plantings. We did a pop of color here, which you will see, some creeping mazes as a ground cover to kind of fill in and just be green. For the season, Roseanne geranium that will kind of bloom all summer, which is a really nice filler. Some bulbs, allium and bearded iris for the spring and give you like a dramatic pop of color when those come up. And prairie dropseed is a native grass, which we think would be just a nice texture there. Again, the honey locust to fill in, weeping willows, and then along the southern portion by the playground, in these new tree pits, we would like autumn gold ginkgos, which would also provide, you know, striking fall color, and London plane trees, which, you know, are great for urban environments. And that concludes, oh, and this is the viewing arch. Just to give an example of what that may be, you know, these are some examples around the city. And these could be lit at night. It could just be a feature that you might see from downtown to kind of catch your eye or bring attention, or just become a, you know, a piece of art in the city that's well known and brings people down to Voinovich. And that concludes the presentation.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Manders? I have one comment. It's just personal. I don't like prairie dropseed.
You don't like it?
Why not?
Just all that grass. It looks like something's gonna crawl out. I had it in my yard. I had my husband dig it all up. It was just a bit too much, but that's just personal.
August has his hand up.
Just a few comments. If we can go back to the site plan where all the furnishings are kind of laid out. I appreciate the city trying to kind of revamp kind of all spaces with colorful striped furnishings. I just want to, you know, some preference on the balance of how that's done. I think, you know, when you integrate kind of color pops, I think like sometimes it can seem like there's almost too much color going on. I like the callback to the North Coast color palette. Potentially 2 colors may be better than 3, depending on how they're distributed to the site. I think potentially thinking of how that's organized in more of a, I guess, more structured way, potentially having one color to the north end, another color to the west end, another color to the south, could potentially just, again, give these areas kind of their own look and feel and a way to kind of integrate more color palette. If you go back to the next slide where, you know, you have the furnishings, I appreciate the furnishing selection too. Again, just a personal preference. I think the trash cans don't necessarily need the pop of color. I think, again, this is one of those things where it starts to get a bit too much, in my opinion. And I think the same thing with the park view table. I think sometimes when, you know, the color pops among things that don't have color. So if those things were maybe receding in the gray tone, then the chairs, the movable tables and chairs, and as well as the picnic tables would be kind of the show, the yellow, the blue, and the orange. Kind of those colors would pop, and kind of the other things would recede. Again, just kind of personal preferences on kind of the color selection throughout, but I think really nice presentation about updating a kind of old space that could use some attention. So
August has his hand up.
Yeah, I actually Drew stole my thunder, but I do have an inquiry. Have you considered Adirondack chairs that could be moved around? I've seen that done successfully in fact urban environments as well. Just a question.
Yeah, that was kind of like the feel I was going for the rough and ready seats and cubes, which are kind of at the end of the pier, on the northern side.
Movable ones, not
Sure,
stationary fixed.
That's the feel I was going for, but I selected these.
For the chair to Mr. Fluker, I just wanted to mention Downtown Cleveland Inc. has been working with us on this project. And one thing that has come up is that certain things sometimes end up in the lake. So we're trying to play that balance of what gets anchored to the ground and what doesn't. I think everybody agrees we want movable tables and chairs. And so way of dealing with that is essentially the movable elements are more interior to the park, and the fixed elements are more towards the water's edge. So we feel like we're picking that up. Downtown Cleveland also does a bunch of events down here and has Adirondack chairs. So we'll pass that comment on to them. And I believe they already set some out for events, but we'll confirm that and we'll advocate to get some of those as well.
Yeah.
I do also want to mention, this team has come through Downtown Flats design review. They had similar comments about color scheme. We really wanted to bring a lot of pops of color to this site. As Emily alluded to, it's sort of been missing that element all these years. And so we really tried to bring as much color as we could. Hearing similar comments to what you brought up, she really refined the palette over the last, several weeks. And the committee saw the revised palette and was very happy with where it ended. We could certainly continue to look at that as we go forward. I think that's been one of the things you see in design often is color preferences are always a dubious process. So it's been, a fun process trying to sort it all out. But we'll certainly take those comments, into head. She also updated native plantings per their comments and provided additional shade. So we feel like the comments have been well picked up to this point, and we're happy that Emily's on our team helping with the design.
And also, the northern portion, those viewing tables are in the direct sun. So I chose a lighter color just so maybe the heat wouldn't be as bad there. So that was just another consideration.
This we'll need a motion. This is for final approval. I assume you're getting it in by the spring, I'd hope. So
I make a motion for approval for Voinovich site furnishing.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant, Lifetime.
Madam Chair, may I just point
Sure.
out, and maybe I should have been more specific about the Adirondack chairs. I mean, there's a green lawn. Those movable Adirondack chairs could be in the lawn. That's just, I think we should create not just seating on the perimeter, but is it a sin to sit in the lawn?
When you made that comment, I thought of the lawn. So
Yeah.
we'll give them the comment. Appreciate it, August.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Motion carries, right? You got everybody. So Slythe wasn't here. Thank you. Can't wait to see these. I do agree with August. I think there were that super large one and the smaller ones on Wade Oval, and people have used them quite a bit in Wade Oval. honestly. And they move them around and they're by the trees but I understand this is a different environment. So you do not want those in the water either.
Play by ear.
All right, thank you all. So the next item is Cleveland Public Square Programming Hub. Drew Crawford from downtown Cleveland.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, great. Good morning, everybody. Drew Crawford, Senior Director of Planning for Downtown Cleveland Incorporated, here to present our programming hub funded by Project for Public Spaces. So I'll try to go through these slides relatively quickly to get to the design. Just briefly, hopefully you all know a little bit about us, but our vision is to create a vibrant and welcoming city center that weaves downtown districts and surrounding neighborhoods into a seamless urban fabric that is greater than the sum of its parts. And our mission is to attract talent, jobs, residents, and investment through market influence, community impact, and irresistible experiences. Across downtown in 2024, among some highlights, 105 food truck days, 49 music pop-ups, 29 winter events, so on and so forth, including 90 public square activations in 2024, since we took over management of Public Square. In 2023, we applied for and were awarded $100,000 by Project for Public Spaces for a project in Public Square. Project for Public Spaces, their mission is to help communities transform their public spaces into vital places that highlight local assets, spur rejuvenation, and serve common needs. Next slide, please. Not a comprehensive list of awardees, but just to give you all an idea of who received funding in the 2023 round, that does include the West 29th Open Street. So I believe we're the only city that received 2 awards, which is really exciting. But on their website, you can see other listings, including Public Square. Next slide, please. So within the grant, the goals were to establish a physical staff and storage hub on Public Square, increase resident engagement and ownership, and reduce barriers to small-scale programs. Actually, not really a space that we had on Public Square to do any of the things that we wanted to do. So the engagement to date include 1 working group tour with colleagues from the city, thanks for their support, and Project for Public Space officials, 2 workshops with 29 total participants, 5 stakeholder interviews, and an online survey that had 829 responses. And August of 2024, we had a month-long game station that had 1,200 visitors. As you probably all recall, Public Square was under a bit of construction last summer with the Bollard project, as well as the Superman movie filming. So August 1st was really our first date to do programming on Public Square, having taken ownership several months, or not ownership, having taken management responsibilities just a few months prior to that. Next slide, please. So a little bit of the example of things that we already do, which include a hospitality cart staffed by trained ambassadors, a cocktail cabin, which we rolled out, I think 2 years ago, which was really popular in downtown spaces for different events. And then the game station, as I mentioned, which was, again, really popular. And that was temporary. You can see that it is a tent, but we did receive a lot of good attention from that. It was really enjoyable to do that. Next slide, please. So the programming hub goals, first and foremost, we needed storage. We needed a solution that we could put all of the materials and things that we have and own there, especially overnight. We do want to create a vibrant landmark. It's eye-catching that visitors can engage with. So very importantly to program and have kids come up to us and have things to do, but serve as a center for information, especially during the warmer months. An added staff presence, so a shelter for staff and making DCI easier to find and accessible to visitors, and be appropriate to Public Square's design. Next slide, please. So a few existing conditions, Public Square looking north. Next slide. I think we all are pretty familiar with what public square looks like, but yet again, another picture. The arrow is pointing to the desired location of our programming hub. You'll see that this is not a permanent structure that we're proposing for public square. It can be moved, but also sturdy enough to hopefully stay for a while, whether that's several months or years, but it is a temporary structure. Next slide, please. I think we can go to the next. Yeah, thank you. So throughout our engagement, we further refined what we needed, including a minimum of 60 square feet to store particular things like pop-up tents, folding tables, our imagination playground. The secondary need was hospitality and community engagement. And we also had some seasonal specific needs, accommodate changing programs. So perhaps in the future, this could change from during the day to a kids activity center to even a place where it is a cocktail cabin where we could serve alcoholic beverages and create a beer garden or something like that. Next slide, please. So the design considerations, we wanted to hide materials and equipment. We didn't want it to be on display, of course, but we also don't want to make it look like it is in fact a storage unit. So beautiful even when it's closed, that aesthetically treated with art, lights, or other features. We wanted it to feel inviting and not like a ticket booth, have a large opening for moving materials, didn't want windows because of weathering and possible vandalism, an interior space for staff not accessible for the public, but again, open and transparent that really kind of connects all the things that we're trying to and have done programmatically in public square. Next slide, please. So a couple inspirations from examples throughout the country and world. Approachable openings, that was a major consideration. We also wanted the materials to be warm and to have a little bit of a canopy, whether it's snow, rain, or sun. Next slide, perfect. And then also enhance the programming hub experience, just become yet another place, another third space for people to gather, kids, adults alike, to spend some time in public square. Next slide, please. So this was an initial concept, thanks to the landscape architects at Project for Public Spaces, of what it could look like, what that particular size of a size of a programming unit that includes storage could look like. And again, this is on the southern section, technically, of Public Square, but really towards the center, you can see the crosswalk. So it's slightly north of the fountain and north of the existing building where Rebel is. Next slide, please. Couple pictures of the materials in context. Again, we all know what public square looks like, hopefully, but here's some more pictures of what we tried to take into consideration. Next slide. So with our partners at Land Studio, we did put out a request for proposal and chose Rust Belt Welding Company as our vendor. Really excited to be working with them. I believe Lou is here on the call. So Lou's been awesome and Grant's been awesome to work with, but they do have a really good track record, as you can see, throughout the region. Next slide. So this was the initial design that we proposed and went forth in front of the local design review advisory council to give you a sense, kind of having the warm materials, having a canopy, that looks good when it's closed as well as when it's open. And I think you can go to the next slide because that's the initial designs. Yeah, and this is the colorful canopy. We wanted this to be a bright spot that kind of sticks out in a good way. A little bit of it in context. I think we have 2 more slides until we get to the final design of the new design. Great. If we could pause here briefly. The design review committee provided some really tremendous and helpful feedback, saying that we should review how the proportions and angles of the openings, roofline, and overall canopy relate to the rest of the structure and how they respond to the context of public square. Review architectural transitions at the edges and base. Review ADA and other safety concerns of swinging doors. And review the siding material that better withstands transportation from one place to another. So Here's the updated design. This is what it looks like when the programming hub is closed. And if you could actually go back really quickly, just wanted to point out on here you can see our logo on the left, which is the Downtown Cleveland Incorporated logo, and on the right is the new Public Square logo. The other elements, particularly the colorful squiggle, probably a better name for that, is meant to be just an example of art that could go there. We would go through the necessary approval channels for that. And then also in the middle front is just an example of us maybe printing out seasonal activity schedules or something like that. Just so when it's closed, the public has an idea of all the things happening in Public Square or nearby. And it draws attraction, and it's not just a completely empty space when it's not in operation. So thank you for that. So here's a little bit of the specifications. They are made of composite wood slats that you saw. This has been original to our design, but we think that adds a really soft element. There are shutters that can be folded open and secured flat against the back of the kiosk. The canopy is 6 inches tall rather than 4 inches tall to add visual weight relative to the height of the kiosk. This was a design review feedback element. The paneling has some visual elements, 6 inches from the ground and 6 inches from the top. Lighten the density of the grid canopy, so we've moved to rectangles from squares. Steel structural aluminum. Plexiglass will be 2 inches thick approximately to allow for a very heavy snow load. The wall panels that come out, and I'll show you a couple images in just a second, would be 1/4 inch thick. Again, this is temporary, so no HVAC, no plumbing, and it does connect to the electric grid right in that area of Public Square. So there won't be any ugly extension cords or trip hazards or anything like that. The size is 12 feet by 3 inches wide, and the length is 8.5 by 5 inches. The canopy is different multi-sizes, so at its widest, it's 18 feet 1 inches wide, and at its shortest length, it's 13 feet by 2 inches wide, and the longest width is 19 feet by 11 inches. Next slide, please. All right, here's the good stuff. The updated design, as you saw, it does say Public Square on it. We want people to know, of course, where they are, but to know that it's a place that they can come seek information. So we do hope that this attracts a lot of people. Again, from a programmatic element, from an informational, from a safety element. That's what it looks like when it's open. We want it to be inviting. That's a rear view. Fully open with everything, so it is easy to get things in and out of. And our timeline, we are really hopeful to get this in by May 1st to get approval to send this to engineering. That's what Lou will do for us and his team, and then install it by the programming date of May 1st. We are hosting a subsection of the International Downtown Association Conference here in Cleveland from May 7th through the 9th. We'll have about 500 visitors from around the country and world downtown, so we'd really like to get it in by then as another element of the things that we do. All right, I feel like I went through that pretty quickly.
Thank you.
Comments.
Thank you very much. Most comprehensive presentation we've ever seen for this small thing, but we appreciate it. I will say, I appreciate it. Commission members, any questions or comments?
Madam Chair, to the applicant, and this is going to kind of sound in the same vein of my previous comments to the other presentation. I'm a big fan of color in public spaces, specifically in this kind of effort to what is more of like a traditional timeless design public space to add splashes of color. I think, again, it can be done in a way that is, I think, a little bit more thoughtful. I think I'm not a big fan of the rainbow colored roof plexiglass feature. I think potentially, it's one of those things that I think, can look outdated rather quickly. I think potentially, reducing that palette to 1 or 2 colors potentially would make it have a level of sophistication that I think, again, will stand the test of time. Another with the wood slats, being composite is the fact that they're not going to gray or weather in the same way that the other kind of wood or materials in public square do. Just a thought if that is the thing that we want in terms of complementing the existing materials there. Again, knowing that this is not a permanent structure, but just again the thought in the same way of the color of the metal, thinking about the building. I forget the name of the restaurant that's there, that has like more of a gunmetal gray, and we're looking at almost like a matte black here. And I'm wondering again, in kind of concert with those existing materials, could we look to kind of mirror that color choice? I think again, you know, being very strategic of when we pop and when we kind of recede is kind of the delicate balance of design. And I just, you know, then and lastly, I would say like the sizing of the logos on these panels seems a bit off to me. Not to squiggle with where the art is going to be, but in my opinion, I'd imagine, you know, the square logo, which is the new kind of, you know, trying to give public square an identity, make people more familiar with that, should take precedent, and maybe that should be larger, and maybe the other logo and in support of that logo, potentially thinking again with this idea of where we pop with color. Just one logo colorful, the other logo in support, just the white version or the black and white version of that. I think there's just a next level of kind of revision here that I think would add some sophistication to this, given again, you know, the location in public square, which I think in kind of the last couple of things that have been added to the square have been just, I don't want to use the word, my words are going to escape me, but like kind of hodgepodge things have just been added. And I don't necessarily see kind of a continuous fabric of trying to accentuate what's already happening in the space with some of the additions that have happened more recently. And I think we have the opportunity to do that here.
Thank you. That all makes sense. And you know, certainly the colors we can continue to work with, especially the roof, and we can look to match that gray if that's something that the commission would like us to do.
You can work with staff on that. I don't think they have to come back on the timeline, but I think you can continue to iterate with staff on that. I mean, this is temporary. Anyone else?
Madam Chair, that was part of our question today is, you know, they've received conceptual approval at Downtown Flats. How many times would the commission like to see
None.
the project?
Final. They can go back to staff. I think we're like, this got to get done. I mean, it's, if they're going to fabricate it. They know the comments, but I mean, if they're going to fabricate this, they've got to get going and get it in by May. That's short timeline. So
And I also add the folks at DCI have done a really good job on Public Square, just putting out tables and chairs that are for public use. And that activation is, as Commission Member Fluker was saying, having movable tables and chairs has really changed how that place functions. So we really are appreciative of the work DCI has done to make that space a little more approachable and welcoming to just the average citizen. And this is just another step in that direction.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Thanks, Jen.
So I think if we're okay, we're talking about final approval, but really working with staff and local on the finalization.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion for final approval for the Cleveland Public Square Programming Hub, and that they return to staff for final approval on color schemes, et cetera, et cetera.
Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Slife.
Place not here. Motion carries. All right,
Thanks so
we have
much.
Thank you. One more design review. This is Public Art, Illuminate Clee. These are temporary badge sculptures, 2 locations, 601 Erie Side and 1935 Euclid Avenue. Destination Cleveland. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay.
Good morning, Commission members. My name is Courtney Began. I'm the Development and Experience Coordinator at Destination Cleveland. What I've got for you today are 2 out of the 3 locations that we're looking at for our badge sculptures. We call them our badges. So they're pieces of illuminated street furniture that are part of the larger Illuminate CLE project. We can go to the next slide. The project as a whole aims to improve connectivity, walkability, visitation, and perceptions of safety and economic activity within downtown and beyond. Next slide, please. So we've got 3 of these badges. Again, they're all identical except for color. So we've got orange, green, and red. They're produced by Le Mans Studios, which is a firm, I think they're Canadian based. They currently sit near Rocket Mortgage at Huron in Ontario, one at West 3rd and St. Clair, and another at East 3rd and Superior. So per agreement with the city, they have to move once a year. So we're looking to move these in the springtime around April. So again, today you'll see 2 out of the 3 sites. Just a little bit more background. They weigh 1,500 pounds empty and then are then filled with 1,800 pounds of ballast. The lights and sound are all internally powered by this hand crank that you see on the side here, so they don't require a utility connection to power or anything like that. And the purpose is really just to serve as a, fun interactive photo op. Next slide, please. So the first site we're looking at is the Great Lakes Science Center, the lawn of the Science Center. This is a parcel of land that's owned by the city of Cleveland that's under a long-term lease with the Science Center. I think there's great, photo-worthy backdrops, whether you're looking north or south. And yeah, this is just kind of to show what that would look like in context. It would be orange, of course. Yeah, it doesn't obstruct the public right away or anything like that. Just additional site photos there for you. And we can look at the next site, which is Cleveland State University on Euclid Avenue between East 18th and East 21st Street. Again, you can see just some views and context there. This is just adjacent to CSU's food truck park. Really good high foot traffic area. We think it could benefit from additional furnishings just with the high volume of folks that do frequent the food truck park. Good sight line to the iconic Rhodes Tower. And and it's not right away, so no complications there. And I think we'll get just some shop drawings here. So just more logistical things, all identical except for color. They're just under 11 feet wide, a little over 6 feet tall and 2 feet deep. Don't need to be anchored to the pavement because the base again gets filled with that ballast. So it would be very difficult for somebody or even several people to try to tip that over. No need for a utility connection. Essentially, we just set it down with a forklift on a level surface, add the ballast blocks, and we're good to go.
Just curious, do people use them?
Yeah, we
Do
do
you have any
actually.
pictures of any people in it?
Do I have pictures of that? I
Yeah,
mean,
I haven't seen any online. I'm just asking. Do people take photo ops? Are they putting them on social media? Are they, are
Yeah.
you seeing them?
yeah, they've been well received. They've been out in the world for about a year now. That's good feedback to have. I should have added more photos
Well, no,
because
I'm
they are
just
very
curious, more
fun.
out of curiosity, like, are they going viral? Are people like, using, are they just traveling around?
Well, viral could be a stretch, but we're launching the full Illuminate project later this year. So I think with that they'll have some additional eyes on them, and they do actually. When they're getting cranked, there's some sort of sensor in there where we actually get dated to see like which locations are being used more than others and those sorts of things, times of day. So yes.
Commissioner members? How are you?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, they did review these with PetBot back on February 4th. PetBot didn't have any issues or concerns. I like the new locations. The only question I had was with regards to the orientation of this one at Cleveland State, but Courtney was able to explain just the photoshopping and what would actually be more prevalent in the background than the angle that this photo was taken at. So other than that, I'm fine with the new locations. I'm in support.
A question to the commission is, there's actually a third badge that Destination Cleveland is working with city staff on relocating as part of our one-way pair project. We're still working out the details of the when really, and the final location. But the question is really, do you want to see that come back?
I think if staff's okay, we're fine if you find a location.
Sure, that's good.
Madam Chair, I make a motion to approve the location of the 2 badges as presented and that the applicant work with staff on the final location of their badge.
Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
no slide.
Motion carries. The administrative approval is for 3 public art locations. This is just allowing them to contract for this. And for administrative approvals, just to remind them, unless you have any questions, we don't hear them.
Make a motion for approval on administrative approval, number 157-2025.
Second.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Thank you. By the way.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Sergeant,
Yes.
Life.
Motion carried. All right, we have one, for information only. It's a special presentation about Cleveland Moves progress. And is Sarah Davis here online?
There she is.
There she is. Well, we're about to call the meeting to close without you. Come on up here. So if you can have a seat. What is the transportation department?
We don't have an official transportation
didn't think
department.
so.
We have a mobility team that's cross.
Is that where you work?
So I work in the City Planning Commission.
Oh, you do?
We have folks in MoCap, and we also have Callie Merchman in the mayor's office.
So the transportation department does not exist.
That's correct. Not yet.
Was waiting for it. It wasn't a good idea.
Yeah.
So, just kidding.
No, yeah.
Yeah, Sarah. Oh yeah, you got the advancer down there. Sarah's on our team with Dave Bass, who handles our other major transportation projects too, with the capital projects office.
We are a small but mighty and recently growing team.
Agreed.
All right, am I good to go?
Good to go.
Awesome. Well, happy Friday, everyone. Again, I'm Sarah Davis. I'm our active transportation senior planner. Among other things, I've been managing and leading Cleveland Moves, which is our 5-year multimodal citywide transportation plan. A little bit of background on this work. I know I presented sometime late last summer when it was much warmer and sunnier outside to you all as an update. But this is a required 5-year plan that is part of our Complete and Green Streets legislation that was passed in 2022. So we have to do an update to this work now every 5 years, and this is the first one. The last time we did a bikeway plan was in 2007, so we're well overdue for this. And part of the motivation for that 5-year update is this makes us eligible for Safe Routes to School funding. So another pot of funding that helps to make our streets safer, to make sure that we're always eligible to apply for that. There we go. Thank you. Okay, so further context, in 2024, 75 folks at least lost their lives in traffic crashes on Cleveland streets. That's a significant increase from what we saw in 2023 and what we saw in years before that. So this continues to increase across the country. We saw traffic fatalities, crashes, dangerous driving, all of that increase during the pandemic. A lot of places have seen that number start to come down. In Cleveland, we are still continuing to increase. So our streets are getting more dangerous. This is what I've heard all throughout community engagement. People are tired of feeling scared. Even when they're driving their car, they're like, people are passing me in the bike lane or the parking lane. Like, it's just not comfortable to be on the street no matter how you're out there. So the big vision behind this is that Clevelanders deserve safe streets. And this is also taking into consideration the Vision Zero action plan that we built in 2022, which commits to ending fatal and serious injury crashes on Cleveland streets by 2040. As far as the goals for this, beyond just safety, we're also thinking a lot about comfort. So something we heard a lot about and hear a lot about often is that a striped bike lane doesn't feel comfortable on a lot of our high volume streets. So thinking about what is comfortable for most people to use. Also thinking about convenience. One of our metrics for success is making sure that every household in Cleveland is long-term within a 5-minute walk of a high comfort bikeway. So it's not like, oh, we need to load up the car, or we need to spend an hour on the bus to get to a path to ride on. It's like we could walk our bikes 5 minutes down the street or ride down our own street and be on those facilities already. And then also we worked really hard to think about how we could center the community in street design. So as opposed to holding meetings and asking people to come to us, we did a lot of popping up at events where people already were and talking to them there. And we also did a lot of like checks on like who we were hearing from and how that represented Cleveland. So that said, we started our engagement last summer. We were doing data analysis at the same time. We heard from folks. We started to draft recommendations at the end of last year. We started into our second round of engagement, including community conversations like focus groups. And we did an online round as well for the second piece. Right now, we are finalizing our recommendations and expecting to come back to you all for adoption in April. And then the idea is rapid implementation. So one piece that we've committed to with this plan is a rapid 3-year implementation of a bike network. And so starting into that this year being year 1 of that 3 years. So we have a lot of work to do. And the idea is not like, let's daydream about what could happen in 10 years. The idea is like, this is what we're going to get done now, and focusing on what we can do with the resources that we have. As far as engagement, we did all different kinds of things. We have a really informational webpage on the city website that you can look and click through. If you want to look through all the details of engagement, you can do so. There's a PowerPoint on that. If you want to look at the map of the bike network, there's a link for that. We did a lot of pop-ups, like I mentioned, at community events, not just like asking people like, what do you want to see? But also we asked folks to fill out a story card with like, what mode do you wish you could use? What's your biggest challenge to getting around? And we did a lot of information sharing in the format of a truth myth game, where we would read out statements about transportation and ask people to weigh in on whether they thought it was a truth or a myth. So it started some really interesting conversations, just knowing that some of the things that we're proposing here aren't standard in Northeast Ohio, even though they're standard in other regions around the country and the world. We had an online map that folks added to in 2 separate rounds. I offered virtual office hours every Wednesday. And then we had some stuff in the media as well. There's a lot happening on this map, but just to break it down a little bit, the yellow dots are what you can see are where we had community events. I think there's a few that haven't been added from our second round, but just to give you a little bit of a sense, the blue that you see on this map is what's considered highest need by the ODOT, active transportation need metric. So that looks at educational attainment, access to a vehicle, number of youth, number of seniors, poverty levels. It's basically trying to identify like where are the areas where people are most likely to have to rely on active transportation and transit to make sure that we can prioritize those. It's worth noting that Cleveland as a city is high need compared to the entire state. But in the reality that we live in, where resources are constrained, making sure that we highlight these highest need places. The red lines that are shown here are high crash corridors. So for every 1 mile red line that you see there, not all of them are just 1 mile, some of them are multiple in a row. That's 10 people who have been either fatally injured or seriously injured or fatally injured on that street in a crash within a 5-year window. St. Clair is a great example of a street where there's, depending on the year, 3 or 4 miles in a row. So that's 40 people if it's a 4-mile segment. So you can see how our engagement centered around those areas and also kind of some areas that we want to prioritize in our work. I got into this a little bit before, but this is an image of the story card that we asked folks to fill out when we talk to them in person. I should note the top ways that people wish they could get around were walking and biking. There were some folks that said both of those, walking and biking. And a lot of people cited all different reasons for, they talked about public safety, they talked about dangerous driving, they talked about not having access to the same bus route they used to, different things like that. And then myth or truth, I think my 2 favorites that I always call out are, we talked about the benefits. Sorry, this is repetitive for you. I know you've heard this. We talked about how bike lanes are beneficial for everyone. So even if you are not a person that rides a bicycle and you never see yourself riding a bicycle and you choose to drive everywhere, the point is that a separated bike lane makes people travel slower naturally. So we have less speeding, we have less dangerous driving, it's visually narrowing the roadway for folks. So that was really interesting. I think I have a quote in here from someone who was like, I'm not a biker, I'll never be a biker, that's just not physically possible for my body, but that's something that I'm I'm happy to have physical separation between the driving lane and the bike lane because I see people using that as a passing space and that feels uncomfortable to me as a driver. The other really cool conversation we had with a lot of folks was about roundabouts. Some folks brought up the roundabouts on Franklin, the mini roundabouts. Other folks brought up, I think it's on 116th. There's a bigger roundabout. And folks were like, it's kind of annoying. Like, what do you think about these roundabouts? We explained some of the safety benefits. And even though there's a little bit of frustration when someone yields when they're not supposed to, or they don't yield when they're supposed to, generally their safety outcomes are much better. And so folks were like, I'm willing to be a little bit frustrated if it means like no one's getting T-boned and dying in a crash. So it was cool to hear folks be like, you know, change is a little bit frustrating, but like, I'm willing to do that because I really care about my neighbors and my family and myself. So this is the quote I referenced. This is someone that didn't see themselves necessarily as a bike rider, but they could see how separated bike lanes could be beneficial in their neighborhood. So just some overall themes that we heard throughout the process. People want protected and high comfort infrastructure. They want us to do better work with maintenance, and kind of another piece that's been happening behind the scenes with this work is just like internal conversations about like, what can we maintain? How can we do this? Trying to get those pieces in line. Concerns around personal safety. I know there was several, especially students, that cited like interactions with stray dogs as a concern. ADA accessibility, people universally, I heard only excellent things about speed tables. They're like, how can I get one on my street? What's the website? Please write it down for me. And I'm sure, I know I've noticed recently the street lighting, and that's definitely something we heard out from folks as well. This hit page has a lot of text. We have a breakdown of all the data analysis that we did on the webpage. I'm happy to share the link with you. But this is just an overview of our metrics that we've set for success. So as we move through this 5 years, how are we measuring what's successful and we're meeting our goals? So high level, we're looking at the number of crashes, fatalities, serious injuries, especially for people that are vulnerable road users. So people walking, biking, if those people are hit by a car, they're much more likely to be killed than someone else who's in a car. Looking at the number of high stress crossings in the city of Cleveland. So looking at the number of vehicle travel lanes, the speeds on those streets. I think downtown is a great example where we see a lot of high stress crossings where you're like kind of looking in all directions when you cross the street. And then also with this end goal of having every Cleveland household within a 5-minute walk, measuring our progress towards that. Right now, about 5% of Cleveland households are within a 5-minute walk of a high comfort bike lane. So I'm a little bit ahead of myself here, but there's about 60 miles of high comfort, all ages and abilities bike network in the city of Cleveland. This is mostly trails. So you're thinking about the trails at Edgewater, the Red Line Greenway, the path along the Opportunity Corridor, things like that, where most people would feel comfortable riding along that. It's not always going to be the person who's, you know, they ride 50 miles every day and they're doing races on the weekend. This is just like normal people that have to ride a bike or choose to ride a bicycle. So measuring that as we continue, hoping to see that increase. And as far as pedestrian crossings go, this is just high stress pedestrian crossings. So a lot of them make sense. I see like Detroit on there. Chester is on there, but then again, downtown really lights up because it's not a big street crossing a small street. Downtown, it's almost always a big street crossing a big street. We have 2 types of recommendations. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail today, but they include a bike network, which is specific streets. And again, when we add in that bike network, that's not just making the street safer to bike on, it's also making it a safer place to drive or to walk or to cross the street or whatever it is. And then we have systemic practices that we will prioritize in high crash areas, high pedestrian areas, in our existing projects, and just, you know, those are best practices to include and including them wherever possible. So here's all the systemic practices. I don't have a detailed breakdown of explanation and pictures today. I know it's been a long agenda today, but wanted to call out a couple of my personal favorites. Under signalization practices, something that doesn't get a lot of it doesn't seem very glamorous, but it makes a big difference, is shorter signal cycles. So we can adjust our traffic signals. In Cleveland, a lot of our lights are 2-minute cycles. So if it's not busy outside, a lot of times you'll pull up in your car or you'll be on the bus and you'll be waiting at a red light and nobody else will be at any other side of the intersection. You'll wait there for what feels like a long time. If you're a person walking in the situation, especially if it's 5 degrees outside and there's a foot of snow on the ground, you're a lot more likely to cross when it doesn't say walk, which puts you at risk of being hit by a car. So we can shorten these cycles while maintaining the appropriate amount of walking time for folks to get across the street. In Cleveland, we use a 3 feet per second average crossing time, which is actually slower than the average city uses. Many cities use 3.5 feet per second. So thinking about older folks who have different mobility needs, our younger folks with littler legs. So keeping that crossing time in place, but also just reducing the total time of the signal so it's not sitting in green for folks to go one direction. I will also highlight road diets as a big one. It's kind of the core of this whole thing. I mentioned at the beginning the number of folks who have been fatally injured or seriously injured in traffic crashes. One of the big reasons for that is we have a lot of big streets that are under capacity. So in Cleveland, reducing the capacity on our streets is a really big help in making our streets safer. So the Superior Midway is a great example of this. Superior operates at about 25% of capacity, which leads to dangerous driving, which leads to crashes, which leads to it being part of our high crash network. So part of that project is just reducing the space that drivers can see and feel like they can be on their phone, like they can go too fast. So we can use extra space when we remove lanes to accommodate separated bike lanes, to accommodate transit lanes, to expand sidewalks, to add in parking if there's a need for parking, all of those things and more. So that's kind of the core of all of this is we have excess capacity and it's making our streets more dangerous and it's making our crosswalks longer so people are in the street longer. I've mentioned comfort and all ages and abilities a few times. So when we talk about that with our bikeways, we have some of these, these are all pictures from Cleveland streets, but some of these you might see more than others. For a long time, we've done a lot of sharrows, which is the shared lane markings that you see. This is on West 25th. I personally am terrified to ride on West 25th. It's not a street that I would choose to bike on. And you can see in this picture, the folks that are biking all have chosen to bike on the sidewalk. So it doesn't have an impact on how comfortable it feels to ride in the street. We have regular standard bicycle lanes on streets like Euclid, where there's just a stripe on the ground. That can be a little bit better than a shared lane, but still often drivers will enter that space and it doesn't feel comfortable to actually use. We have some buffered bike lanes, which add a little bit more striping between people biking and driving, but again, nothing physical between them. So when we talk about building out a high comfort bike network and every household being within a 5-minute walk of a high comfort bikeway, these ones on the right side in green are really what we're focusing on. So neighborhood greenways, which are low volume, low speed neighborhood streets. These are the streets that when you bike on them, you're like, I'm a kid again. Like, there's beautiful trees, there's houses. I'm not worried about like a bunch of traffic lights. Like you are riding through a neighborhood, it's lovely. So we have a network of these in our proposed vision network that we can complement with speed tables to make sure speeds remain low. And this is, not just a great place to bike, but it's also a great place to go for a walk. It's a great place to live. It's, all of these things. Our network will also include separated bike lanes, and this is a big focus of this is quick build. So we've spent a lot of time talking about the Superior Midway. I think it's been on our radar for a decade at this point, and we're really excited to see that happen. But we know that funding is changing at the federal level right now. We know that it's taken us a long time to get to where we are with that project, and we want to move projects faster so we can impact safety and save lives. So that said, we're really focusing on projects that are within the existing street space that we can build quickly using striping and using separation. So it's not how can we adjust these curbs, it's okay, this is the existing curb to curb, what can we do with that space? So when we talk about separated bike lanes, especially in these first couple of years, that will be oftentimes adding separation to a wide bike lane that already exists, or pulling up the existing striping, restriping, and adding separation to new bike lanes. So it's not always going to include repaving, it's not always going to include moving things around, but it is going to be a change in the street. Paths and trails are also included in what's considered to be high comfort. And some of our network will include new trails. I know there's that trail coming on East 66, the East Side Raised Trails that Metro Parks has been working on. But we aren't prioritizing building new trails as a big part of this vision, just knowing that we'll have a much smaller impact on our residents. Just a little bit more about when we talk about comfort. There's national standards that we look to when we think about what's appropriate for a street. But generally, if you stand next to a street, it's pretty clear. You're like, I would not ride on this street if there was no separation, or this is a quiet neighborhood street and I would feel comfortable riding in the street. But we think about what speed limits are, what vehicle volumes are. If there's parking, being mindful that not only are people driving a vehicle a hazard to people riding a bicycle, but we also know that someone who's getting out of a car can open their door into someone who's riding a bike. So that's like a hazard on both sides, and we have to be mindful of that and how comfortable that may or may not feel. This is a map of our current All Ages and Abilities Network. So you can see again, those trails that I mentioned, about 5% of Cleveland households within a 5-minute walk of these. So excellent for those households, but we want these to be more accessible for everyone. They're a really good start to where we're going. And this is our vision network of over 250 miles of separated bike lanes, neighborhood greenways, and more across the city. This will not all be built in 5 years. Well, I mean, potentially it could, but we're not expecting that at this point. But we will have a breakdown of what we expect to be able to build in the first 3 years when we come to you next time. So this is all. I know the map of Cleveland is hard to look at without being able to click around and zoom in. So this is available on our website. You can click around, zoom in, look at your neighborhood, but just wanted to have it on here. So that's all for me. I'm happy to take questions. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. Any questions?
Just a general comment. I mean, Sarah's given this presentation to a host of different bodies now, including council as well. So Councilman Slife has heard this a couple times, but really at the core of this is a safety plan for both, drivers and other, ped bike users. Like, I think that point we really want to get across. Zooming out a little bit too, like the real big impact this has is this is the first plan at a comprehensive look at infrastructure in the city of Cleveland like this since 2007, right? Like, so the alignment with our capital projects office, our folks in public works is big. And this gives us a really clear roadmap into like the next 5 years, especially with the 3-year like rapid implementation that Sarah's talking about, with looking at existing facilities, expanding on those in the roadway with what we can do, i.e. like the physical separation or restriping that provides that physical separation with cars or delineators or concrete as well. It's exciting.
I have a couple comments. Most of them are with regards to additional things that the city can do to like wrap around this. I think when we think of the to and from, when you get to destinations, I think bike security is like a huge thing. I've had 2 e-bikes stolen in the city, and largely because like in the places where I'm going, there's not a bike rack. So, I mean, one time I locked my bike to a stop sign and like they like literally cut down the stop sign, stole my bike. And when I reported it to the police, they came and put the stop sign up, but like not my bike is already like, so like I think like, in terms of encouraging people to bike, it's also the facilities when they get to and from their location. So they feel like their investment in whatever they're riding is secure. I also think like how this marries like the TDM strategy is also going to be really important. I don't know how those two things are coordinated with one another, but making sure that like, again, these networks or these investments are again adjacent to the development that we're trying to encourage as well. And I think I had one more, but it's slipping me, but.
Well, maybe you'll remember it. I have a couple of thoughts to share on that. So one, with the bike security piece, we are working on implementing more bike parking. One thing that's coming this spring is we've been working to develop shared mobility hubs. So they're essentially a collection of bike racks and a sign that lets you know a little bit about the shared mobility program. So the bikes and the scooters that you can rent, that will be installed across the city and actually beyond the city and other parts of the county. Those obviously are built for the shared mobility program, but they are bike racks. So there are more bike parking coming this spring in the next few weeks. We also heard from, especially from our student focus group, they were like, I would ride my bike to school, but like, I think my bike's gonna get stolen once I get here. And so I think we heard that really loud and clear of like, especially places where people are spending a long time. And I've been trying to mention that to developers and in PetBot and thinking about like, if you're providing bike parking, what type of user is parking their bike here? Like an hour is different than 8 hours, security wise. As far as TDM goes, we are starting to coordinate with we've been working with RTA around what their transit priority corridors are. So a lot of those are those 15-minute routes that 15-minute frequency routes that qualify a street for TDM. So a good example of how we can make improvements on a transit priority street is if it's not a bike lane, is there a shared bus bike lane? If there's not a bus lane or a bike lane, is there a bump out that we can build so that folks, instead of asking the bus to come to the curb and potentially not be able to be like clear with the curb, so someone with a mobility device or a stroller has a harder time getting on, building a bump out so the bus stays straight in the lane and folks have an easier time boarding. And one other thing, it's a small detail but feels relevant. When we were thinking about the 5-minute walk to a bikeway, that was very much in line with the like quarter mile of TDM thinking. So trying to like use that same measure of distance in that way as well.
And the last thing, again, like economic development piece, if there's anything, I know that various municipalities have like e-bike incentives. I know there was something at the federal level. I don't know if that's still happening with new administration, but I think various cities, I know San Francisco, I think has one. Wondering if the city is looking at any kind of, maybe not directly for individual residents, but how do you maybe support businesses like the various bike shops within the city that then they can have like, increased capacity to support maybe residents who might not be able to. I think sometimes I think like the difference between people riding is again that comfort piece. And everybody I talk to who has an e-bike, the comfort is up there, but then there's the price point factor. We're just like, well, I probably would ride more if I had an e-bike, but an e-bike is like a lot of money.
Yeah.
Like, so like how we can, again, I think about these kind of these parts along the trajectory of how we can intervene and like make it easier for people to be a part of this.
Yeah. I know that we've applied for funding in the past for e-bike programs. I don't think that we've been awarded it to my recollection. And I don't know what the future of that looks like at the federal level. But I agree. I think there's been a lot of success in a lot of places and it's a really cool program. So
thoughts. And I don't know if I've shared these before. One, when it comes to like off-road paths, I think there's a Venn diagram of like transportation, recreation, and like I think it's a little disingenuous to say that like the Rocky River Valley Metropolitan Path is the same thing as like the Lorain Carnegie Bridge Trail. So I think that we should maybe back. Like Edgewater is a great place to go to, but I don't think people are using Edgewater to practically get from point A to point B like in a day-to-day transportation way. And I say that because kind of leading into my second point, I've been an advocate for years, and this is not safe routes to school, but there's like it's kind of related to it in a sense.
this is our updated safe routes to school.
So I think we should do a walking audit today. like today. Like we always do it in June, we should do it in February after it snowed. Because kids walk in the street because people don't shovel their sidewalks, and then there's all these vacant properties. So like as we talk about like on-road bike facilities, excluding metro parks, like are we going to install these, and are we actually going to maintain them to make them useful in February? Or is this just another, like, we are blessed compared to many metro areas where sidewalks are invasive, but not a practical transportation experience in Cleveland for 2 or 3 months out of the year. So like, what's our solution for that? And are we building something like that is, yeah, it's great that I can live near my kid's school and near the bus line and all these things, but if 3 months out of the year I basically still need a car because I can't haul kids around in the snow, then like there's still a problem that we're not solving for. So
I hear you. Moving to Cleveland, one of the things that was a shock to me was that we don't have a culture of everyone clearing their sidewalks, or people aren't able to, or all these different pieces. That said, one thing that we're looking to kind of figure out with this is being able to make a promise of maybe the bike lanes aren't cleared on day 1, but can they be cleared by day 3? So I don't have that commitment here yet. But we're working to kind of establish what that will look like. I know like sidewalk clearing is a big issue. I know that getting on and off the bus, especially like even if the bike or the sidewalk is cleared this week, I'm like climbing through the mountain of snow to get on the bus every day, which is not fun and a little bit soggy. But one of the things that like realistically we know people do is they walk in the street. And so if there is a separated bike lane and if we can clear those, not that it is designed for someone to walk in, but it is reasonable to assume that someone might choose to walk in that space. I think one group that I heard that was really excited about more bike lanes was we did a focus group with Max Housing folks, so people that use all different kinds of mobility devices, and they're like, put bike lanes everywhere, we'd love them. And so again, it's designed for someone using a bike or a scooter, but that's not to say that in the real world, people will not use it in a different way.
There's a question on the record. Is it, can you be fined for not shoveling? This is when I moved here. I in North Jersey on the East Coast, you'd be remiss if you thought you could like not shovel your sidewalk.
Thank you for your question. Cleveland ordinances do not necessarily mandate shoveling, but they mandate that there has to be traction. So that could like you could shovel, but you could also like put down sand or something. There is an urban legend that if you like snow's a natural occurring thing, and if you were to shovel and then someone slips and falls, that you're liable. So there's a lot of people who don't do it intentionally because they think that they're opening themselves up to liability. That's not true. And it's required by municipal ordinance to into the sidewalks adjacent to your property. And I think that we have more success, frankly, I think, on residential streets where I'm not saying it's perfect, but you're more likely to come across it. But our main commercial corridors, they do not give a word I'm not allowed to say. And then you end up with private snow plows pushing plowing and over sidewalk aprons. And it's really, I worry more about the main roads than I do about the side streets, because walking in a side street is not advisable, but less dangerous than walking in the middle of one road. So
There differentiation in the code between residential and commercial?
no, it's just adjacent property owner. Yeah.
Blanket.
So it's not, it doesn't say very much shovel, but it says
Provide traction.
fractions.
Ask the next question and come back to me.
Well, thank you for that excellent answer.
Any other comments or Sarah? All right. Well, thank you. Do you have a forecast as to when you'll be coming back?
I think April 4th is the plan.
Hey, do you guys want me to read it to you? Love that. Every owner, occupant, or person having charge of any tenement, building, lot, or land fronting on any avenue, street, alley, or other public highway of the city shall clear the whole sidewalk in front of the tenement, building, lot, or land of snow and ice before 9 a.m. of each day, provided that if the sidewalk in front of the tenement building is not flagged or paved, a person thereon shall be way thereon shall be cleared of ice and snow to the width of at least 5 feet. Blah, blah, blah. Every owner, occupant, or person having charge of any tenement, blah, 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 shall keep the entire width of the sidewalk from curb to lot line free and clear of all earth, sand, brick, stone, rubbish, dead trees, and dead branches. And it goes on to say, there was something about ash. Hold on, because that was the one I wanted to read. Oh. Shall cover the snow or ice, so shall so remain with such coatings of ashes, sand, or other substance as may be necessary to render travel safe and convenient. So you can throw down ash.
It says clear of snow.
Yeah. It goes on to say, if from any cause it is impossible to remove all the snow and ice which may adhere to such sidewalk, then every owner, then you can put down sand or ash or something. So go get some ash.
On that note, thank you again, Sarah. Adam, do you have any director's report?
I had a couple updates, yeah, if you all would like. Some other transportation related stuff, because I know sometimes this doesn't get to this body, but stays more in the capital projects realm. So we did submit in the most recent round a build grant application for Lorain Midway, that long-term, decade plus project. We have a construction schedule for the Superior Midway project as well, which will start in late 26 and bleed into late 27, early 28 with that. They're in tandem with more of this work with Cleveland Moves, and we could happily elaborate on it like a different presentation maybe. But we're doing a big safety study on East 55th, really focusing on some of these quick build implementation efforts like Sarah was talking about. So if you've been to like Little Italy with the bump outs at the intersection and like kind of defining where those parking areas, making the crosswalk distance shorter, or if you've been out to Waterloo where there's plastic delineator posts like in the middle of the intersection, making the car make a slower turn movement and staying in their lane, stuff like that along the high crash corridor that East 55th is. Out of the top 20 worst intersections in the Cleveland municipality borders, 55th has 3 of them. So important kind of safety work with that. Some other small area plans that are in the works but haven't been before this body. We could certainly entertain a presentation at the appropriate time, but I mentioned the Stockyards plan that Brittany's working on with Councilman Santana. We're doing a lot of work with CMHA and the Buckeye Woodhill partners, continuing that effort as phases 3 and 4 come online with the Woodhill Choice plan, and then focusing on the future efforts. And then Kenya Gray from our staff and the County Planning Commission, we're collectively working on an East 22nd area plan around the Juvenile Justice Center demo that's upcoming, and the work that ODOT is doing to realign the inner belt in that area. So, yeah, just some small updates for you.
Thank you all. Just a reminder, our next meeting is Friday, 9 a.m. So your place and time officially adjourned.
Brilliant.
Can I make a suggestion?